Welcome to Patricia Trends, a platform where we keep you updated on trending issues happening around our country, Nigeria, and even beyond. Today we are looking at the match between Paris Saint-Germain and Arsenal. You know, if football was a parliament, a senate, and an electoral commission, the UEFA Champions League Final between Paris Saint-Germain and Arsenal would have gone down as one of the most dramatic political transition of power ever witnessed on the continental stage, I swear. What started as an ambitious opposition campaign by Arsenal eventually turned into a masterclass in political survival by PSG, who weathered every storm, resisted every uprising, and ultimately emerged with a renewed mandate after a tense penalty shootout that left hearts broken and nerves shredded. In fact, I avoided all the Arsenal fans yesterday to avoid, although many of them are proud of their performance, no doubt. The match began with the kind of shock that sent political analysts scrambling for explanation on live television. Barely 6 minutes into proceedings, Arsenal launched what can only be described as an early morning electoral upset. Kayavaro seized upon a moment of administrative confusion inside PSG's defensive establishment, stormed through the corridors of power, and delivered a finish so emphatic that it felt like an opposition party winning the ruling party's strongest constituency before breakfast. The goal sent a clear message across Europe. Arsenal had not gone to participate, they had come to overthrow the reigning champions. For a brief moment, it looked as though PSG's administration was facing the kind of crisis that forces emergency cabinet meeting and late-night strategy sessions. Arsenal supporters were already imagining victory parades, while PSG fans stared into the distance, wondering whether the government had lost control of the state. Yet, great political machines are not built on panic, and PSG responded exactly like a seasoned ruling party that has seen countless election cycles. They did not rush, they did not abandon their ideology. Instead, they gradually took control of the instrument of governance. Possession became their ministry. Territory became their constituency. Every pass felt like another government agency falling under their control. Before long, Arsenal found themselves retreating deeper and deeper into their own territory. It was as if PSG had acquired every broadcasting license in the country and were now controlling the entire narrative. The ball moved from one PSG player to another with such authority that some Arsenal players probably felt they needed permit just to leave their own penalty area. The Zerich's men were governing possession with an iron fist. At some stage, the football seemed to belong exclusively to PSG, while Arsenal were reduced to fielding objections and launching occasional counter-attacks whenever parliamentary procedures allowed. But Arsenal's defensive structure deserves special recognition. If PSG controlled the federal government, Arsenal controlled the judiciary. Every attempt to force legislation through the penalty area met fierce resistance. Gabriel transformed himself into the equivalent of a constitutional court chief justice, rejecting proposal after proposal from PSG attack. When Shootout looked set to break through and restore political balance, Gabriel intervened with the kind of clearance that should probably be achieved in a national museum. It was not merely defending, it was constitutional protection of national sovereignty. David Raya, meanwhile, stood in goal like a central bank governor protecting foreign reserves during an economic crisis. Every PSG advance increased the pressure. Every save delayed what many believe was inevitable. Arsenal supporters watched nervously as their team increasingly adopted the football version of a defensive coalition government whose only objective was survival. As the minutes ticked away, PSG's siege became relentless. Arsenal's penalty area looked less like a football pitch and more like a government building surrounded by protesters demanding regime change. Waves of attacks arrived from every direction. Possession figures climbed. Territorial dominance expanded. Yet, somehow, Arsenal continued to hold on. Then came the phase where football abandoned all logic and entered pure political theater. The goals started arriving with such frequency that observers might reasonably launch a commission of inquiry into the apparent mass looting taking place under the watch of the goalkeepers. Security appeared compromised. Defensive agencies struggled to account for missing footballs. The auditing process became increasingly complicated as the scoreline continued to evolve. At times, it felt as though both goalkeepers were presiding over a national treasury from which assets were mysteriously disappearing. Each attack produced another emergency. Each goal created fresh allegations. Neutral fans could only watch and wonder whether the department responsible for border control had taken the evening off. By the time extra time arrived, players don't tire. Exhaustion had begun influencing decision-making. Players who had spent 90 minutes debating policy through football now looked like politicians after a 20-hour parliamentary session. Legs became heavy. Minds became tired. Every touch carried the weight of history. Neither side could produce a decisive legislative breakthrough. And so, like so many great political disputes before it, the matter was referred to football's highest court, the penalty shootout. The beauty and cruelty of penalties is that they erase everything that came before. Possession statistics become irrelevant. Tactical superiority becomes irrelevant. Historical prestige becomes irrelevant. It becomes a matter of courage, composure, and you can actually include execution. The shootout unfolded like a final electoral declaration. One by one, candidates stepped forward to cast their votes. Millions watched in suspense. Every successful penalty felt like a constituency declared. Every miss felt like a devastating loss at a key polling unit. PSG approached the occasion with the confidence of a government that had mastered the mechanics of retaining power. Their players displayed remarkable composure. Arsenal fought bravely. But the margins at this level are unforgivable. When the decisive moment arrived, PSG held their nerve. The reigning champions had survived the uprising. They had overcome the early opposition surge. They had resisted every challenge. They had reclaimed control of the narrative, and they had secured another European mandate. For Arsenal, the pain was immense. They had shaken the establishment. They had led the contest. They had defended very well for long periods. Yet, football, like politics, does not always reward the side that wins the early headlines. Sometimes, it rewards the side that remains standing when the final result is announced. As PSG celebrates another Champions League crown, Arsenal were left reflecting on a campaign that came agonizingly close to claiming history. They won admiration. They won respect. They won beliefs. But on the night, they did not win the final declaration. And somewhere in football's imaginary anti-corruption office, investigators are still compiling reports on the extraordinary movement of goals that occurred throughout the evening under the supposedly watchful eyes of the goalkeeper. The case remains open. The fans demand answers. The champions, however, have already taken the trophy home. Let me get your thoughts on the comment section. Do like, subscribe, and share. Do not forget to hit the notification bell so you'll be the first to get our videos as they drop. Till next time, stick to this channel and be updated.